Today, as South Africans, we celebrate Human Rights Day, 21st of March. However, many see it as just a long weekend and others as a day off away from work. And we celebrate our humanity and have various discussions and engagements with our families. But all too often, many have forgotten how we got here and what Human Rights Day actually means, what price was paid, and the liberties we take for granted as human rights in South Africa, Africa, and the world. In 1960, on the 21st of March, the PAC, the Pan-Africanist Congress, organized a demonstration in a little town called Sharpville, what is now known or close to Vereeniging in the then Transvaal and now Gauteng, to demonstrate against the pass system. That demonstration was organized in a show of force and resistance against a system that was built to control the movement of people of color in South Africa. It was built to control by an apartheid and white supremacist government that believed it was entitled to control what people did in their own country as what they popularly called natives or Bantus. And regrettably, this peaceful demonstration became an appalling day in which a show of force was demonstrated by the apartheid government. Policemen with live ammunition shot hundreds of individuals who had assembled to demonstrate peacefully and unarmed, to demonstrate the power of the white government and that you needed to comply with what you were told and what the nationalist government had prescribed. 69 people were killed. It is alleged 180 people were injured, but according to other records, thousands were injured. In that process, comments were passed by the then police commander who said he wanted a show of force. He wanted to show that they were in control. Other recollections by individuals in the community spoke of the seriousness of what the police did. And some journalists who had observed the massacre had said the police did not stop firing live ammunition in excess of 12 to 1400 rounds of ammunition until nothing moved on that area. Many of the individuals who were shot in the back. They were shot running for safety, running to stay alive, although they had come together to demonstrate what was rightfully theirs, free movement in a country. Just yesterday, I had a detailed conversation with someone that I consider as my mentor, Dr. Morley Nkosi, a seasoned veteran and stalwart of the struggle in South Africa, and a leader in the PAC. And we were deliberating on where we are as a country, as a people, and what's going on in the COVID crisis and where we are in the crisis of what we need as a country, but also where the perpetuated ills of the past still exist today. And not just as a systemic problem, but as a failure of the ability to identify that COVID is not just a problem. HIV and AIDS is not just a problem. Economic challenges are not just a problem, but they are part of a massive contributory cycle which keeps certain parts of the community underprivileged, under-resourced, and part of the labor force in this country. And based on his extensive experience and some of the amazing discussions we had, I also began to reminisce and reflect on discussions I had many years ago when I sat one day as a magazine publisher with struggle veteran in South Africa, Mr. Mosey Muller. And what had begun as a discussion for an article for 4 pages had become an awakening to me. Because instead of talking for content for 4 pages for a magazine, we spoke for hours and for days on end in recorded conversations. I had then learnt in intimate detail the struggles, the pain, the emotions, and the sacrifices thousands and millions of people had made to give what we take for granted in 2021 as freedom in a democratic country. But are we really free when people like you and I, who have the resources to watch these videos, to engage with each other and take technology for granted, when there are communities in exactly this time that do not have basic services. They do not have access to water, they do not have access to good sanitation, good nutrition, and resources that we take for granted every day. I don't believe these challenges are only political challenges. I think it's far beyond that. As human rights, I do believe we all have a role to play. If this society, this country, this continent, and the world has contributed something to who we are today, there's an implicit and explicit duty for us to directly contribute to improving the lives, at least those around us and our communities. When people don't have good, clean running water, basic access to basic resources, and we're not talking about technology, machine learning, AI, and other amazing innovations that we also have access to, but we talk about solving everyday challenges, then I believe we all have a role to play. Us as community individuals, as leaders in business, in non-government organizations, or almost any other organization that has access to resources and influence, we need to stand in solidarity with each other as we celebrate human rights. Because what we take for granted is our human rights. Our fellow human beings struggle to have access to every day in communities in any direction, particularly in South Africa and Africa. So I appeal to you to understand, as the word solidarity was used in the struggle and as part of what we focus to build as a democratic country in South Africa, and our forefathers had laid down their lives, a large part of their lives for that, we need to stand together and look at what the new phrases are for this, yet we're solving the same problems. The United Nations helps us focus on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that we want and intend to achieve by 2030. The South African government has the National Development Plan. And the World Economic Forum, in the words of Professor Klaus Schwab, speaks of stakeholder capitalism. Stakeholder capitalism, in my mind and understanding, is not about capital per se, but the direct contribution and the direct interest that everything in our community, including climate and environment, have a stake in what we do as businesses, beyond the bottom line, beyond profit, beyond direct shareholder value. I strongly believe, and I agree 100%, that we have an explicit, it used to be implicit, but now an explicit duty to directly and materially contribute to improving the lives of the people around us and our community. So as we celebrate Human Rights Day today in South Africa, and we deliberate on this across the continent, our continent of Africa, and the rest of the world, we need to realize in not such a distant past, these atrocities were meted out to communities. In different parts of the world, human rights almost don't exist for various reasons. We cannot fix all of the problems all of the time, but we can solve some of the problems, which means we can materially contribute from our organizations, our businesses. I come from healthcare and I have access to certain networks and businesses and resources. And I do everything that I can and still want to do more to directly contribute individually and through collaborations to improve the lives of communities around us. And I think it's time that we all, whilst we celebrate our day off and our public holiday in South Africa, we need to realize the sacrifices that families have made, the sacrifices that generations have made, the sacrifices a continent has made to free itself from the shackles of a perception of despair, desperation, of dark and gloom. Africa and South Africa, as a part of this continent, is pregnant with possibility. But that possibility and opportunity and the spirit of the people of South Africa and Africa can only rise at an accelerated pace when we ensure that every child, every individual, every family has an equal opportunity to access to basic human rights and resources. Then only can we help them focus on entrepreneurship, investment, strategy, and development. An empty stomach, a dying child, a sick family member takes priority over these illustrious dreams. Because if the basics are not in place, these communities, these individuals and the communities and our society will continue to struggle. So I appeal to you as we celebrate Human Rights Day, deliberate on what we can do and actually do what you can for our community in the spirit of humanity and the spirit of Ubuntu. Stay well, stay safe, and stay blessed.